I mean, you have to really be very adept at software, at developing, at coding. I mean, all of it. It's all critical. You're learning technological and soft skills for the future, where like my traditional sports you played, like, are you learning how to produce a football game when you play quarterback? No.
Yeah.
But are you learning how to stream content if you're playing Overwatch as a gamer? You might be. So it has some interesting implications that way.
Hello and welcome to The Future is Clear, Teach Like It's 2045 webcast series. My name is Scott Carr from CESA 2. Today's topic area is how Milwaukee Esports Alliance is driving regional collaboration and offering opportunities for our youth. Joining us today is Brandon Tschacher from Milwaukee Esports Alliance. Brandon is the founder of Milwaukee Esports Alliance, a leading accelerator and center hub for Wisconsin's growing esports industry. Brandon has been recognized as a power broker and 40 under 40 by Milwaukee's Business Journal and is a graduate of our own University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, graduating with a marketing degree. I was fortunate to meet Brandon about a week ago or so at CESA 1, where he spoke about esports and the growing interest. Welcome, Brandon. How's it going?
It's great to see you, Scott. Just like that. We were in person then. Now we're digital now. Look at us.
Yeah, isn't that something? I was lucky to go that day, if you would, because I think it was bad weather day, wasn't it?
That was probably the worst weather day in a while. That was
Yeah,
tough. Yeah, whoever made it was doing the Lord's work that day. Pretty impressive.
right. Walked in and I wasn't sure what to expect, but I was happy that we were able to have you present on this interesting topic, I would say. It's always been in the back of my mind. You hear a lot about this when I do this career readiness work with school districts. When we start to talk about students and what they like to select as a career direction, we get a lot of how would you say it? A lot of interesting responses around this
Yes.
esports and also influencers, right? So yeah, it was really cool with what you covered. I was very intrigued. So I'm glad that you could join us here today and talk a little bit about it. Um, let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your journey? How'd you get where you're at?
Yeah, so I'm a Wisconsin kid primarily, born in Texas, but came up here pretty early in life. Went to school in the southern Wisconsin area through high school. As you mentioned, went to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, marketing degree. Go Panthers! And then following that, worked in media for a number of years. Kind of as I was just getting into the workforce, spent some time kind of in the healthcare tech side of the equation as well, and then at a financial services firm for a few years as well. And then yeah, kind of found myself one day just sort of interested in really the future of video games kind of happenstantially. And the reason why is I'm, as you may see behind me, kind of an avid retro video game enthusiast and collector.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I kind of realized was, I knew a lot about old video games and what I had obviously growing up in the 90s and 2000s. But at that time, I had a 1-year-old son. I now have a 5-year-old son and a 1-year-old, close to 1-year-old daughter. And I guess I really just wanted to know sort of what the next, generation of video games was going to be for them, because I, like you and many others, had seen a lot of the, earned media, seen a lot of TV and different things
Yeah.
discussing the industry. And so I wanted to kind of get to know more. And so just a general curiosity about it is what led me down the path. And then just kind of being an entrepreneur and someone who's interested in sort of starting things was kind of where the spark went from there.
Well, it's super cool. Were you much of a gamer yourself? I mean, what like
Growing up, I played a little bit of video games with my
yeah.
friends, as many did, sports titles and so on. But traditional sports was always my path. I was basketball, football, baseball,
Um,
track, ran track at college at UWM. So actually, the traditional side of the sports equation was always probably more prevalent for me. And I always kind of laugh now that video games are such a massive part of my time. But realistically, as a father of two and business owner, I don't have any time to play as
right,
much as I would
right.
like to. But yeah, I think I bring a unique piece of the puzzle in this industry, because I do, of course, love video games, but I'm not a primary consumer. And so I get to look at things a little bit more from a business lens. And as being 38 in this industry is pretty geriatric. So I kind of get to have that elder statesman piece of the puzzle as well. just by kind of seeing, things for a bit broader context than I like this video game or I like playing video games, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. What I was really, how would I say it? I was amazed was how detailed it is. When you
Mhm.
talked about it that day, I was like, man, this is serious. I mean, this is like, there's a lot behind this. I've seen it on ESPN even, I think I've seen
Mhm.
it on
Mhm.
TV. So still very intrigued about it and what it is. So give us a little bit about, or a lot if you want, because I'm sure we have a lot of interested listeners out there. What is Milwaukee Esports Alliance?
Yeah, so I think you can consider us at this point probably like an esports conglomerate or an industry conglomerate, right? So we've had to really pursue a number of different avenues, sort of in the search for profitability, because we are a business, and in the world of esports, profitability is generally not a very often seen reality for a lot of companies. And so I've been pretty dead set on trying to prove that, hey, this is an industry that's sustainable. It can, provide jobs, and it is a place, beyond just playing games. So our path for the first 2 years followed probably more closely aligned to a trade association, quite honestly, which I know many people are familiar with. But our job, or what we took upon as our job, was just to connect the different esports communities of Wisconsin. And what I had learned kind of as I went down that rabbit hole initially was there was a lot going on. There was a lot of growth in scholastic and collegiate and people playing recreationally, right? But none of them are really getting the chance to talk because the economics were allowing most people to only do it part time, if that, or just sparingly. Right? It's a passion project more than this is my full time job. And so we took it upon ourselves to try to become a connective tissue, if you will, for anyone really in the esports space of Wisconsin to say, hey, I now have a place to go to meet and talk with others, right? And so we did that any way we could through Zooms. It was right as the pandemic hit, which was actually a major boon to our business because I was able to do conversations like this to the tune of 60 or 70 a week. I mean, it was just lining them up, right? Because the interest started to be there. And versus when you have to meet in coffee or go to an in person thing, Zoom really just unlocked a world of potential for our organization. And so, for about the first 2 years, it was just focused on let's see if we can bring people together. Following that, and for the last two, we've really been focused on, again, the business side of the equation, right? So we have major events, typical business to business conferences, B2B conferences that many are familiar with, one being the Wisconsin Esports Summit, which is a really kind of incredible event in and of itself. We have now partners from across the country like Lenovo, Corsair,
Wow.
CDW, MSI. We've got major corporations in Wisconsin, Spectrum Furniture, and others that are supporting that. And that is such a great event because it brings together educators, it brings together collegiate coaches, high school coaches, it brings together players. We have high schools from all over the state that bus in kids because you get to play video games on a jumbotron, and oh, by the way, you get to learn about esports and network with other esports enthusiasts, right? So an event like that has become a real beacon, not only to the endemic community, but many like yourself and others who are saying, hey, like, I'd like to learn more. Where's a place I can go to get educated and have some fun? Right. So March 3rd of next year will be our fourth year. So that's a very cool example event that's, traditional conference, but really with a gaming spin
Yeah.
on it. We got into tournaments. So we actually just hosted our second year of a tournament this past August called Cream City Convergence. I'm wearing the shirt from it. Had over 1,000 attendees from 35 states and 7 countries, with the possibility of winning $1 million prize pool. Right. So we got some really cool stories and got people from places of the world that have never been to Wisconsin, let alone Milwaukee before. So we've got into the tournament space. We've got a venue on the east side of Milwaukee where we're able to operate, weekly competitions, and that's a really positive thing for the collegiate ecosystem and for general casual game players who want to go and compete and have community, right in their back door. So that's a very cool opportunity. We just launched this past semester the Wisconsin Esports Conference, which is a collegiate conference. So all of the colleges in Wisconsin now have an official esports league to compete in, which has been very well received. We had 24 colleges this first semester. We'll probably have upwards of 30 in the spring. So a lot of positivity there. And, I could go on, but, we have our hands in a number of different capacities that way. And so from the event side to the brick and mortar side to the communication side, we're really just trying to provide value wherever possible and wherever we can, get value and, receive payment. So it's kind of been a fun story.
Yeah, yeah, really, really interesting. And I love how It seems and feels like your mission too is awareness, right? That this isn't just game playing. It's not kids getting lost in their
Mhm.
gaming device or their phones or however they're playing it, right?
Yeah.
How did you get started down that path?
Well, education and awareness is something that I would love to be able to have us have a full time division oriented towards because it is so necessary and so needed, really, right? As a parent, I wish even myself that I had more information to give out to others who have children whom are playing what they may consider to be more video games than anyone ever should, right? And so, unfortunately, education doesn't always pay, right? So we've had to pursue other avenues, but opportunities like this and the chance to speak at your previous CISA meeting, we're so grateful for because yes, the opportunity to educate and speak to, hey, here's the deal. 98% of people under 18 are playing video games, male or female. I mean, everybody is playing a video
Right.
game on their phone, on a console, on a PC, whatever the case may be. We believe, and studies have shown, that there's actually a lot of positives to playing video games from a creativity lens and from the opportunity to learn gamification of different concepts. But when esports, when you talk about that specifically, that's people whom are choosing, hey, I may be doing this instead of basketball, instead of baseball. This is my sport. This is my community. And so the time that they play increases. We actually think that it's a positive so long as they're within that organized structure, right? Because if you're just playing Fortnite for 10 hours a day at home in your basement, I'm going to tell you, I don't think that's a positive. But
Right.
if
Right.
instead you're on the Fortnite team at your middle or high school and you have a coach and you have people whom around you are learning to communicate and create and work together as a team, the same as you would in another sport, that I would tell you, I think is positive, right? And so, as with everything in life, moderation is so key. But that I think that we are really hopeful and opportunistic when presented to share the message of there is value in this, there is value in community. Video games can serve a really strong purpose. But let's also be realistic about the detriments and not positives in unstructured environments. So a lot of work going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. It drives me to think about mindset shifting.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think one of the things I was really intrigued about was how would I say this? How professional it was when I heard you talk about it. It's like this isn't just a group of kids going and just playing games, right? So tell me a little bit about the challenge or some strategies that you guys might use to help with that, not only the awareness, but the mindset shifting that has to probably take place for whether it's parents, educators. Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
I mean, there's a lot, right? And I think rightfully so. There's certain stigmas associated with video games going back to the 90s, right? I mean, there's always been sort of that aura. I think that, it is a mainstay culturally at this point, where maybe in the past you might have seen it as like a rising cultural phenomenon. Like video games are here. We are not, sure they may increase, but they're everywhere and they're here today in
Yeah.
2024. And so I think rather perhaps than a possibility of neglecting or ignoring, just recognizing that it is real. And so what do you do with it? And I tend to believe that it serves the communities that find the most value in it very, very well. And so it
Yeah.
kind of again goes back to that organizational structure side. What I would love to see and what we try to advocate for is helping put guardrails around the amount of time or the guardrails around whom is playing, where they're playing, what they're playing. If you can do some of those things, I think that it also helps reduce the stigma because people just see that it's like, okay, if my kid's in a Mario Kart league, yeah, they may not feel as differently than let's say Call of Duty or other titles that traditionally draw a little bit more ire of the adult or parent community. And so, it's a reality that I don't think we're going to ever try to overcome or change minds to have to feel totally differently if it's a belief of electronics versus the outdoors, right? I mean, especially in a state like Wisconsin, like we're an agricultural
Right.
community. I think it'd be foolish to try to completely shift everyone's mindset. But my goal would be to just have people understand that for the group it benefits them greatly. And so let's figure out, if possible, ways to enable them to have more opportunities. And I think that that's, just a mindset shift in and of itself.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, kind of, with that, to create these communities, tell us a little bit about, some of the organizations that maybe you've partnered with. How does that help build momentum and even more awareness? Yeah, talk
Yeah.
a little bit about that.
Yeah, we've been really so benefited by a number of partners across a lot of different disciplines. I mean, we've worked with anyone from the Deer Accelerator, which is the Milwaukee Bucks and Freight program, to put in a new facility at the Silver Spring Neighborhood Center for them to allow for education and gameplay to occur at their new innovation lab. We've worked with telecommunications companies like Norvado up in northern Wisconsin who have given out grants to help create scholastic facilities in Drummond and Phillips, rural Wisconsin communities, and put esports labs in their high schools, which was incredibly well received. We've worked with, I'm trying to think, Palermo's, like we've worked with a number of different companies, both as partners and sponsorships, but also on creating unique events. We're in the midst of, we just launched a partnership with the Geronimo Group down in Beloit, which is a Diane Hendricks organization, to put on the first multi-state scholastic showcase next May down in Beloit at the Eclipse Center. So we're doing work down there, right? So it's been really encouraging, just the diversity and number of different organizations that have reached out or that have a need. And we're grateful to say, hey, how can we help and bring some of our expertise to their realm? But at the end of the day, it's kind of a fun place to be in because you are playing games, which, is creative and it's fun. So, organizations that want to kind of bring that infusion of fun and gaming and technology, sort of into their environment has usually been pretty well received no matter what it is. So yeah, we're open to partner with pretty much anyone. STEM related is usually a big win. Similar to how robotics has found a really nice home and growth trajectory, right? You've got people that kind of see the similarities there. So yeah, we're excited to kind of be in that conversation and excited for the future.
Yeah. It's interesting if you look at it this way. I think it brings diversity to sports in a way, right? And in an equitable way where you've got a lot of people reaching out. It's, it sounds like a lot of people coming your direction saying, hey, tell me more, we'd like to get involved, which is the natural approach to the equity we want to see. Right? The big sports are always going to be there. We see kids in our school systems, right? You lean into those football, basketball, some of those types of things. And here we do have kids that attract to these types of sports and are good at it and gain things from it. So the equity piece to it, I think, is phenomenal. I think it's really, really cool. Tell me a little bit about your footprint. Are you at Milwaukee Esports Alliance? Are you it? Like, are you the show in town in Wisconsin or Midwest or United States? Tell us.
Yeah. So we really stay very focused on the state of Wisconsin, and that has really benefited us. I try to keep us kind of in that what I would call grassroots space, because I think the professional esports space has gone through a lot of challenges, and we really try to stay very nimble economically as well as kind of organizationally. And so we do hold, I would say at this point, a prominent place in the Wisconsin esports ecosystem, just through our different subsidiaries and different initiatives that we've taken on. I mean, we hold the largest networking event. We hold the largest tournament. We have, I would call it, probably the most successful venue. And so, I think, again, the professionalism and sort of our what we endeavor to do, we have thus far been very fortunate to accomplish that. And so, there's always a call and, hey, why you should expand and maybe do this for the Midwest and do it elsewhere. But that's really not our goal. If we can create meaningful impact in a really strong Wisconsin ecosystem, then that will be success. Because I think alternatively, people try to scale in all sorts of industries kind of for the sake of scale. And I have not seen that work out as favorably. And along the way, you lose a lot of relationships, or you do some people right and do some people wrong. And, you can't please everyone, but we really are focused on trying to be well received and well respected by hopefully universally as many people as possible in the Wisconsin ecosystem. And knowing that, we've been here 4 years and we want to be here in 25 years. And we want to help Wisconsin own its esports ecosystem, because it's different than football, basketball, or baseball. Like, you can't own Wisconsin football from New York, but you could own Wisconsin high school esports from New York. You can literally own the league that the players play. And so that's one of the things I advocate for consistently, is that, hey, if we don't take this opportunity now, there are others on the coasts and other VC funded organizations that will. And so then all of a sudden in 10 years, when it's more popular than ever, and people go, why is all of our resources and revenue being shipped off to someone outside of Wisconsin? I'll be there going, well, we tried, or hopefully we will have those resources and we'll be a robust enough organization or enterprise that people will go, wow, I'm really glad we have that where others don't. So that's kind of the long-term vision.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about some of those others outside of our state? Is it really popular? Are there pockets that where it's more popular, in the US? Talk to us a little bit about that.
I mean, so esports in general is wildly more popular overseas in sort of
Oh,
the Asiatic territories and Northern Europe. It trumps us by a ton, and there's a lot of different socioeconomic and geographical reasons for that, and cultural reasons for that. But primarily, North America is a distant third in terms of regions of the world. Even Brazil is probably ahead of us at this point, where gaming is really paramount. And so, we have some room to catch up. Economically, we are a behemoth, of course, as we are in most
yeah.
capacities, right? We have the spending power to be able to spend on video games. But in terms of a player base and popularity, it's much more popular abroad. In the United States, I would say the coasts have really, probably grown this at a more of a breakneck pace, but they have had the investment, to do so. So you've got, New York Unified School District, LA Unified School District, having recently done huge contracts to basically, get their schools outfitted. We did have some work at MPS to kind of mirror something like that, but like it's big and it's probably bigger elsewhere from a population lens, where Wisconsin probably hits well above its, sort of class, if you will, is because of our organization and others that are working together collaboratively. That is not as usual. There's not usually an organization like ours in other places. So they're still
Oh,
sort of in that more piecemeal kind of ecosystem. And so we are pretty lucky that way in Wisconsin to have kind of a unifying body and sort of a group of leaders that are collaboratively moving forward together. That is not usually seen. So more people, more investment elsewhere, but I think we've got a really strong case for what we've been building here through other results, honestly, of our events and products.
yeah. I know when you came in and spoke, you and I talked a little bit about this, but tell us a little bit about, are you involved with school districts at all, or partnering with schools, or even if it's after school type stuff, boys and girls clubs, is there anything like that happening?
Yeah, so I mean, we honestly have partnered with YMCA, the Boys and Girls Clubs, Salvation Army, you name it, right? Like, so we've had a lot of exposure to those groups, and actually through CESA and the Inspire program and network, we've spoken at a number of high schools through that program, as well as just
Mm,
in general, we'll have reach out. So, like I would call it direct partnerships with school districts. I think we would be very open and excited to do that. I want to say that our recent high school league, Wisconsin High School League stats, where there was 122 high schools registered, which is like 30% of the total population, right? Or
wow.
something like that. So there's definitely opportunity there. As I mentioned, we've helped put in labs at different schools, kind of around the state, but
Mm,
it's actually an area that like I think is probably underserved and that we would love to be probably more involved with. But again, from a business lens, we have a product and we have ways that we work with people that cost money. And it's not as though, I get the sense that, scholastic organizations are just like dishing out cash every which way, right? Which I
yeah.
completely respect. And so we certainly would be open to partnering more with scholastic districts for middle school districts and providing that education or helping them get programs off the ground. But, it has to make sense for both parties. And, at this point, we try to kind of create the pockets, if you will, to engage the summit and some of these other things where if people want to raise their hand for those conversations, they have a
Yeah.
place to do so where they may not have in the past.
Yeah, I firmly think it's probably just right around the corner where we're going to see it, evolve itself. And one of the things that, as we sit here and talk, that I find myself going back to is, there is a big shift in our educational system nationwide in relationship to, what is our focus? What are we gearing our students for? Is it achievement? Is it readiness?
Mm-hmm.
Our kids are not engaged in our school system. And so there has been this career community connectedness that we'd like to see more, happen more frequently within our schools. And also, rather than technical or academic skill building, which we know is important, but we're also finding out that durable skills are very important.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, I'm sitting here listening to this, and I'm going, "Wow, I learned a lot from playing sports," and I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you have too, Brandon. Right? What do you think are some of the durable type skills that kids can learn and take away from being a part of something like this?
Yeah, so the easiest answer is copy and paste whatever you would say for football. I mean,
Yeah.
it's teamwork, right? It's the
Yeah.
same type of uh competition, teamwork, communication, all of, I would call it, the pillars of why sports are so important and so impactful on so many. And I believe that every fiber of my being. I would say the other part, though, that probably esports has honestly a leg up in many regards is the technological aspect. I mean, you have to really be
Mm.
very adept at tech, at software, at developing, at coding. I mean, all of it. It's all critical to really become, a competitive esports player, and also just to sort of, be around the ecosystem. You got to know your way around, high powered PCs, right? And so there's really a cool piece of that equation. And also, the production, the streaming, the game, seeing things on Twitch, the content creation, that stuff's all way prevalent in gaming and is probably now starting to permeate down to traditional sports, honestly, because the traditional sports players are gaming. So it's kind of one of those, like, God, what did I hear the other day? Like, does life imitate art or art imitate life? Right? Like the fact that you've got Ja Morant, you got Tyreek Hill, you've got Dante DiVincenzo, you got all these big name sports people that like are speaking actively about the fact that when they go after their game, all they do is play games for 8 hours and they stream it. Right? It's like, it's
Yeah.
pretty wild, right? And so like that's the part of esports I think that has some implications for the future, is that you're learning technological and soft skills for the future, where, like, again, my traditional sports you played, like, are you learning how to, produce a football game when you play quarterback? No.
Yeah.
But are you learning how to stream content if you're playing Overwatch as a gamer? You might be. And so it has some interesting implications that way.
Yeah. Wow. It makes me think though, also as you go through this, like how it can connect itself, and talk a little bit about, is there opportunity for career type pathways for kids to move this way? So it's not just the gaming, I'm a part of a team
Mhm.
concept, right? So we look at that as extracurricular, which I think is really good and builds skills. But is there a door open where kids could move towards a career pathway with stuff like this?
There is, I'm always pretty transparent about, like, we're probably one of maybe two, three, if at best, LLCs in the state of Wisconsin that focus on esports. So,
Yeah.
now similarly, it's kind of the big brother that I always speak to is the game development industry, the people who make the video games, of which there are probably hundreds of LLCs in Wisconsin. And I know there's 80 of them in Madison, right? That are good paying, highly
Yeah.
sought after jobs, right? And so, to be in gaming, there are many careers opportunities. And so esports itself, there are some. It's a very entrepreneurial time, is always what I'm advocating for to
Yeah.
people, which is well received by some, and others is not going to be their path. But if you want to be involved and learn from esports right now, it's kind of in that similar apprenticeship model, right? You have to be sight on, you have to be hands on to learn it, because the education system hasn't quite caught up yet, nor am I telling someone go spend $90,000 for an esports marketing major, right? It's like, it's probably not there yet.
Right.
And so, but it's as with all things. Was AI there 15 years ago and someone was getting their degree in that? No, it wasn't. But then when that moment hits, right, you want that expertise. And so I would still be trying to lobby and get people to realize that, like, yeah, to be able to produce a match on stream for Twitch and have it be well produced, like, valuable skill, and very few can do it right now. And
Right.
so that's the type of thing where it is already here in some regards. That's why I honestly think organizations like ours are so important, because someone has to do this correctly. Like, someone has to be profitable
Right.
and be here in 15 years to have any of this work,
Right.
which is not a guarantee. And so, yeah, definitely connections to it from the job side. And we preach that as much as the gameplay. Similar to professional sports, you're not going pro. Like, so don't worry about that, but do learn about what might you be able to learn soft skill wise, to your point, that could have you be employed, have a career, and stay in the game, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, you say that really well. And that was one of the things that you and I talked about that day when we met, was it's not much different than, some of these sports, right? Like football or basketball or baseball. Very small percentage are going to go on and make money,
Yep.
through that sport.
Yep.
However, your line of work wraps itself around technology, which is never going to go away, and it's
Mhm.
always going to be more enhanced, year to year to year. So to the point of careers and moving in that direction, certainly a kid could, or a young adult could move in that direction. And I really like how you talk about, you're one of the few right now doing great work around it, but people are going to understand, wow, that's something we might want to expand. And before you know it, we've got, 50 of them popping up,
Mm-hmm.
per state. But yeah, I think that's super cool. All right, so let me ask you this. Take a moment if you would. What do you see for the future of either, Milwaukee Esports Alliance or this, esports in itself? What do you see, what's out in front of us? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so I mean, as an organization, we're really focused on trying to dig deep with what we have been working on because we've expanded very quickly and we've been very spread out. And so we want to continue to do well what we've done because again, we won't take that for granted. I think the future for us will hold, additional events, probably some, growth of our leagues as demand sort of implicates. And so we're going to focus on that as possible. But the things you're going to continue to see, I believe, middle school, high school, activation, and player base. It's just going to be more people playing video games and understanding that this is a pathway for them. It is not native for everyone, but when we put on state championships and you have teams and brothers see and sisters see their older brothers do these things, then it becomes native. And so as that goes on, I think the unstoppable force is sort of the under 18 player base. That's what sort of ideally is like driving this whole industry because it's like, wow, this is their currency. It was not your or I's currency. It is theirs. And
Yeah.
so, that's going to be a very exciting thing. But again, there's a lot of people that then want to come in and monetize that operation and want to take advantage of those things. And that's where I think scholastic educators and others have been so thoughtful about trying to make sure that, what is happening with data and what is happening with the way that our kids are engaging and whom are they engaging with. And again, I hope an organization like ours, locally grown with a track record, can be well received as a thought and trusted resource to kind of guide some of these conversations and hopefully be thought of as a place where we can guide people to good outcomes. So it's going to grow in that regard. And there's a on the professional scene, professional esports, which is a very needed piece of the kind of life cycle, if you will, of esports. It's a mess. It's a complete mess right now
Wow.
because it kind of took a huge jump during COVID, got a lot of interest, and like many other things, sort of dipped after COVID, and then the financial models were not ready for that, receding.
Yeah.
And so they've got a whole world of hurt they're trying to figure out right now, and a player community that's honestly really young, mostly esports. It's people under 25, and so not a lot of money there. Let's be real, not a ton of maturity there. Right, there's a lot going on there that is very difficult to sort of grow industry wise. And so that's where again we stay focused on our grassroots regional efforts because we do believe we can help in that capacity. And so far, knock on wood, have really shown some success there. So we'll keep working at it.
Yeah. Super cool. Super cool. Well, we also talked. I want to talk real quick before we, cut out of here. We talked about we're having a conference coming up this April 29th and 30th, where we're bringing a lot of people in to talk about that shift of education. And you've got an open seat to come on up and put up a table and draw people's attention into what this is. And if we can find an opportunity for you to take 15, 20 minutes to talk to the group, it'd be great. So you got an open invite. Love to have you there if
Thank you.
possible. Because I think this is the future. I mean, I think what really resonates with me is kids have always been doing this. It's almost like the cell phone, right? We did not embrace the cell phone in education, man, initially. And we, here we are. Cell phones are still around, aren't they?
Yep. Yep.
Advanced. So, we have to start embracing this and starting to look at how do we lean into this stuff, in a positive way to benefit our students. And I think you're doing a great job with that, Brandon. I certainly appreciate it. And great to meet you and be able to pull together this webcast, bring some awareness. So I really appreciate it. I do want to do this one last question, and we have to tweak this a little because I asked the question. Part of our it's the future is clear, and it's a play on terms. CCLR, future is clear. Teach like it's 2045 is our conference. So I always ask, what do you think education is going to look like in the year 2045? So I'm going to ask you, what do you see gaming or, the technology around gaming looking like, 2045 way down the road?
Yeah, I think, one of the exciting things for me that I wanted to get into this now for was the reality that augmented reality, virtual reality, AI, those are all going to play a role, I think, pretty quickly in the gaming experience. And I'm excited because I think today, competitive gaming is kind of held to a very small or niche community, but I could see a very clear future where a you or an I may compete against one another in a more casual but VR community because it's just freaking cool. I mean, the chance to, or you could tie it into exercise, right? Like maybe I get the chance to be more nimble. I mean, physical therapy has huge applications. Like, so I see the AR VR side. I don't think we're going to be on consoles and controllers forever. And so when that moment happens and accessibility hopefully goes into more of the cloud gaming space, you have easier access, higher speed internet, more immersive experiences. Like I genuinely think that most of the world in some way may engage in video games because honestly, it's fun. And I was
Yeah.
reminded by watching an EA Sports Madden documentary recently, and Chip Hawkins, who founded EA, talked about the fact that when you get to be an adult, like you lose so much creativity, you lose so much
Yeah.
play, right? And so I think the opportunity there could end up being massive for people whom may not otherwise today want to sit down at an Xbox and play Madden because they're a plumber and they make a lot of money and they're busy and they're a parent. But what if that person wanted to put themselves in, Jordan Love's shoes and they could just throw on a headset in their living room, right? And compete against somebody in the town over. Like that's where I think things will move. And that's a pretty cool thought. So I see great opportunity and I hope we have a seat at the table, honestly, for that future.
Yeah, I love that idea because in 2045 I'm going to be in my early 80s, and if I can put something up there and makes me
Mm-hmm.
feel younger and I can add a few years onto my life, I think that
Yep.
would be great. So
Yeah.
I love what you're saying. I love what you're
Yeah.
saying. Well, hey, appreciate it. How if somebody wants to get in touch with you, talk more about this, how can I do that?
Yeah, so email is probably the easiest way. So just Brandon at mkesports.com, two E's. I would welcome any and all outreach. As I say, Scholastic is a huge opportunity. We love to be a part of it. We love to help it grow. We've got a lot of resources, both ourselves and parent organizations we partner with to help with that. So please reach out at any time. And again, I keep kind of pushing it, but like, the summit is the place. And we would love to see player, student athlete, educator growth in that segment to come and engage with us from really all across the state of Wisconsin because it's just a fun time. And I think that if and I just spoke at a middle school yesterday, but if you could take some of those kids that love video games and have them come play, but also learn, I just think
Yeah.
it's a really cool connection point that you will not get any other place in the state. It's just so unique. And so I'm a big advocate for that. So I'd say come to an event or reach out to me via email because I still use email. None of the kids do. But connect anytime would be great.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. And we'll definitely add your email and your contact in the newsletter when we post this webcast for others, so they'll be able to see it there.
Cool.
Get you some PR there too. I think it's really cool. So
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate it, Brandon, taking the time. It was great to meet you a few weeks back, and I'm glad we crossed paths and we're able to do this. So appreciate it.
Very grateful. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Scott.
Yeah, you bet. And as we depart, remember, the future is clear. Take care, everybody.